What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. We are finally ready for week 2 of the Major 1 qualifier cycle. We had an interesting first week of matches. I think we kind of got to a good starting point on how to handicap up some of these teams. Week 1 with pick'ems is really tough. So let's take a look. We got matches on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and a lot of really good ones coming up here. And this is a big weekend for some of these teams. Teams that got off to a good start and have one game this week and can kind of end the week 3-0, 4-0 in qualifiers will feel really good going in the holidays. And there are a couple of teams here that I think could be winless by the end of these first 2 weeks. And then you go into the holidays and you start thinking we might see a roster change or two before the next set of matches, which won't happen until the middle of January 12th. So let's dive in. I'll give you my predictions for each one of the matches we have upcoming this weekend. All right, first up, we have the Vegas Legion versus the Miami Heretics. Now, people, if you look at these sort of fan predictions, have the 67-32 to Miami. The books have Miami kind of favored a little bit. This one's a tough one because Miami only played one matchup last week against Carolina, and also Carolina played kind of iffy. Vegas, I think in a roll, it could have been 2-0 last week if they didn't choke to the Royal Ravens. So I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that Miami is favored. This isn't like more of a pick'em situation. That's where I think it's going to net. And right now, I think that while a lot of people, and I may have said on the show, Miami, the more I think about it, I'm going to actually go for Vegas in this one if it goes to a Game 5 search. I'm a little worried about Vegas's control and unknowns about Miami, so we'll see about this one. But I think having Miami strongly favored in this one to an extent, 60-30 seems a little high to me. Seems closer to a pick'em. Next up, we have the Thieves versus the Boston Breach, and taking a look at fan predictions. This one's a little bit closer, but the books actually, right now, if I look at the lines, they have Thieves minus 160, as opposed to Miami was 125 versus Vegas. So I guess the books, or at least the money, thinks the Thieves are a bigger favorite in this one than Miami's versus Vegas. Fair point, but I don't think either of these two teams played particularly good last week. Now, mind you, they actually both had pretty difficult and very similar schedules because they both played FaZe and they both played Seattle, and they both lost to both those teams. You could argue that I think both teams, there's a world we can argue that both teams were a little bit unlucky because they played two teams that are probably top seeds going into this tournament or playing like in top form. You could also argue that both these teams had a lot of cred coming into the week based on things I had heard, that these teams are playing good at practice, blah, blah, blah. So an interesting one. Thieves did not look that great in Search or in Hardpoint last week. And Boston didn't look good in Search, but the other game modes they look solid in. So I don't really know how to handicap this one. I would think, looking at the schedule, with Boston having Toronto on Sunday and Thieves having LAG, I think Boston needs this a little bit more. So I'm actually going to say 3-1 Boston. We're going to go a little bit crazy with this one. Now, this one is a really close one, and it's too early to really feel out which team is kind of trending more negative here. And what I think is a big match for both teams to try and get back, even if they can by the end of the week. And then our final match on Friday, Seattle versus OPTIC. Right now, OPTIC is the favorite, but there's a lot of good value here if you're a better, taking Surge up plus like 115 on some books right now, because I think Seattle's got a very good chance in this series. I think OPTIC is the kind of team that's going to look at Seattle's record and be like, oh, they're going to terminal. We'll chow that. We have confidence to play that map. So we'll see how that goes. But I do think that Seattle has avoided for now playing like a Skid Row or a sub base. I don't think they're going to get away with not playing both in this series. I'd be mind blown if they're not challenged on at least one of these by OPTIC. So I think this should be a really good series. For me, I'm going to actually take Seattle in a Game 5 because I feel like their search is in a little bit better spot than OPTIC. OPTIC lost 3 S&Ds. They were all Game 5, so a bit of an unlucky one there because they battled in all of those maps. But as far as like controlling a search map, I feel good about Seattle. That being said, I won't be surprised if they get outclassed in this series. If OPTIC gets going, it's a one-way traffic. So this one should be a fun one if both teams show up. All right, next up we have the Minnesota Rocker versus Miami Heretics. Right now, Miami is favored in this one. And in general, I kind of feel that way because Minnesota feels to me like a team that's not really good at any specific game mode right now. Whereas, I think Miami's looked good in that one series. Again, maybe they crash and they go 0-2 this week, but I'm going to continue to bet on the Rocker slide here. I'm going to have them take it 3-1 over the Minnesota Rocker. But again, this is still another one. And we're so early in the season that this one, I could just see Minnesota winning if they actually show up and improve on the things they needed to improve on last weekend, which was a lot. New York versus Vegas. I mean, Vegas, I guess, have a chance in this one, but I think New York's a pretty heavy favorite. And I expect that the fans, I have a lot in New York. I'm going to take New York probably 3-1. I'll give Vegas a search here. I just think New York right now is looking like a pretty clean team going into Major 1, and I just think they have way more talent than Vegas to get it done. But we did see New York almost roll against LAG last week, so who knows? And so the second match of this sort of Seattle test here against a top team, Atlanta FaZe versus Seattle Search. The books have FaZe as a heavy favorite in this one, which I'm a little surprised. I would have this handicapped, especially early in the season, a little bit closer than that. So if you can get like Seattle, like a plus 150, plus 175 or higher in some of these books, like taking that money line might be a really good play, to be honest, because I actually think there's value there. And I think that percentage that they're giving you, that implied probability, is actually a lot lower than I think their chances in this match, which are decent, because I do think that, you know, Seattle has the S&D power to really challenge FaZe. I don't think FaZe's control looked amazing last week, even though they kind of battled in both those maps. The offense didn't look on par, and the hard points were close, but two of them were Karachi, so you never know. So I think FaZe are going to take this, I'm going to say, in a game 5. It'll be a gritty series, but I think Seattle will give them a real test. I really like where the Seattle team's at. And going 1-1 after this week, 3-1 going in the break, I think would be a good start. And speaking of teams I think are going to take a good start, we got Carolina versus Toronto. And I got to be honest with you, I just don't see this one for Carolina. The Toronto team is in full cruise control. This Carolina team, I think, really lacks consistent slaying. We've seen pretty much in every respawn map they play. If they don't win it, some other team is getting Kentucky fried. So I think Toronto's going to be too much for them. And I'm just banking on the 3-0 there. Easy said, easy done. All right, we got 3 more matches. OPTIC Texas versus the Carolina Royal Ravens. You know, this is another one where OPTIC is pretty heavily favored, even more so than Toronto, which I'm surprised, but it's fan voting, so it is what it is. I mean, look, if you're Carolina, you want to try and get this on an Evasion, on a Karachi, and really try and use sort of the rattiness of GodRx and Clayster to your advantage here, and kind of neutralize the threat of like Pred and Shotzi, because they're going to like maps like a Skid Row. They're going to like sometimes Karachi. They're going to love high-rise S&D. They're going to like, you know, potentially like a terminal. I would say for me, I just don't see a lot of paths where, unless Carolina fires on all cylinders, where they have a real chance in the series. I'm going to give them one map, but I got to have OPTIC taking this 3-1, and OPTIC going 1-1 on the week. 2-2 going into the break is not too bad. I think they'll probably get to 4 wins anyway by the time we roll around to the major, or plus, you know, if you're OPTIC team, this is sort of a good test this week against a Seattle team that's very good and a Carolina team that will game plan effectively for you. LA Thieves versus LAG. You know, LAG had an opportunity to be 1-1 going into this week. And they really kind of tossed their best chance to win last week. And I feel like that's going to be kind of a little bit of a mini kind of body blow for this team. I think Thieves will probably have a little bit more about them from a slaying perspective. I think Thieves will start to get a lot more comfortable playing together. And I'm going to give LAG one map, but I think Thieves get it done, and LAG kind of just fall back to seller as expected after this week. This is a fun one. Toronto versus the Boston Breach, and they have Boston plus 330 on the books right now. That line may shift, and if you want like a quarter or a half unit here as sort of a good sort of prayer at the end of the week, this one might be a good one, because Toronto always gives you like one stinky split, and it could be kind of this one that's against Boston, because historically, these have actually been pretty close between the two teams. If you look at last year with the different teams, they were generally pretty close matchups. That's why I don't know. Toronto's an 83% point favorite. I think maybe about 10 or 15% too high. That being said, I got Toronto taking this 3-2 because I think they're the better S&D team right now. I just don't. We're back to the same problem of Boston. Do I feel like in a game 5, they're going to clutch? Last year around this time, they weren't doing them, and they're not doing it right now. Things will take Boston more time to gel, but I won't be surprised if Boston upsets this match. I really won't. Yeah, those are my predictions. I'm going to be honest with you. My confidence level is like a 6 out of 10 on some of these right now. There are a lot of, and you remember if I did my tier list video earlier this week, there's like 7 teams that I think are like right in the middle, and they're all jumbled up. And I think after last week, like we didn't really get clarity other than Seattle moving out of that pack of like how those teams stack up. We might get a good sense after this week, but I could see some upsets this week as teams kind of start to get their lessons learned from last week and apply them. And this being our kind of last play on this last patch is gonna be interesting, because I think then we basically get 3 weeks of plus until the next set of matches on the new patch. So it should be fun. All right, let me know in the comments what you guys think of the video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. As always, guys, we will see you on the next one.